starting the Gemara towards the bottom of Daf Memches, 3 lines from the bottom. The Gemara here brings a braisa in connection to what it said in the Mishnah, the story with the tzedeki that did not pour the water by Nisach HaMayim into the place in the Mizbeach. Instead, he poured it on his feet. So the Mishnah said they stoned him with esrogim. Tana Rabbanan. So in a braisa we learned about the story. Maise b'tzedeki echad shenisach agabi raglov. The story with the tzedeki that poured the Nisach HaMayim on his feet. V'ragmu kolam b'esregeyem, and all the people stoned him with their esrogim. V'oisei ayayim, and on that day, nifgema keren ha-mizbeach. One of the corners of the Mizbeach, which is it's a amma by a amma, and has to be very exact, the exact square, it got blemished, it got chipped off. How did it get chipped? So Rashi actually says, al yidei avonim shezarku bay. Apparently there was the sreigim, but there wasn't just the sreigim, they were throwing rocks as well. In other words, it looks like Rashi holds that just the sreigim cannot break the Mizbeach. I mean, Rashi holds that the corners of the Mizbeach are made out of solid rock. So how are Sreigim gonna chip that? So therefore, it was the other rocks that they threw as well. So what happened was I skipped a few words. Vaheviu bulshel melach. They brought a big piece of salt, like a fist size of salt. V'sasmu, and they closed up that chip that was there. Apparently, the chip was that big. Now the Gemara clarifies they used the salt here. This was only temporarily, but it really did not. Mizbeach, when it gets chipped like that, it's not kosher. So it did not make the Mizbeach kosher. Not because by filling it in with this salt, it's going to make it kosher. It's just temporarily that the Mizbeach should not look blemished. It's for the honor of the Mizbeach, so they put it there. And then afterwards they have to go ahead and fix the Mizbeach. And the Gemara will explain this now. The Rebbe says, when you get to this point here, that they put dafka bulshel melach. This was a message for the tzedeki. What was the message to the tzedeki? It's when you get to the halacha of Erev Tchumim. We learned this in Masechta Erev, and it says that you can use all kinds of foods besides water and salt. Why? Because water and salt are not considered food for a meal. It doesn't satisfy a person. So therefore, they were telling the tzedeki, the way the tzedekim learn Torah is, they have to understand everything. If they understand it in their brain, it satisfies them, that's how they interpret the Torah. Someone tells you, Kabbalah Sayil, that there's a Messiah of Chazal, it doesn't satisfy me, I don't accept it. So they were telling the tzedeki, how are you going to fill in the Mizbeach with the salt? The salt is not considered to be a food that satisfies you, but that's what's going to fill in the Mizbeach in order to be able to bring karbanis. Although it's not really machshir the Mizbeach, but that was the message they were giving the tzedeki. So now the Gemara brings the basic requirements of the Mizbeach. Shekol Mizbeach she'en lekevesh, a Mizbeach that does not have a ramp, which was on the Darim side, v'loy keren, and it doesn't have these corners that we're speaking about over here, the 4 corners. It has to have the height of an amma by an amma of each side. V'loy yisayid, and it doesn't have the foundation, which was on 2 sides, 2.5 sides of the Mizbeach. It had the foundation, which was an amma high, and it was wider than the rest of the Mizbeach. V'loy ribua, and the Mizbeach is not square, pasal aveda. So it's going to be pasal for aveda. So therefore over here, it became pasal through this, that they blemished the Mizbeach. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda says, there's another detail of the Mizbeach that's also ma'akiv, that it's going to be pasal if it's not there. Afa soiviv. That part of the Mizbeach, which is the soiviv, where the kohen walked around. And then above that, there was another part that was 3 amas high. That's also something that's ma'akiv that must be there by the Mizbeach. Talking over here about the pouring of the wine and the water into the Mizbeach. They poured it into a sort of a pipe that went all the way down the Mizbeach. So it went down all the way into the Tahaim, under the ground, very deep down under the ground. Who created this? So the Gemara says, Shittin Misheshis Imei Bereshis Nivru. So these shittin that went all the way under the ground, that was created from the Eibishter by Sheshis Imei Bereshis. Shana Amar, there's a pasuk in Shir HaShirim that says, it's a pasuk that describes the Beis HaMikdash in a mashal. Chamuki yerechech, your thighs are hidden. K'moy chaloim, like chains. That's a simple translation. Ma'isi deyoman, the handiwork of a craftsman or of a person that made this. So who's this referring to? So it refers over here to these shittin, to these pipes that went under the Mizbeach. Chamuki yerechech elo shittin. This refers to the thighs that are covered. In other words, just like the thighs are covered, so too this was under the Mizbeach covered, and it went all the way underground. Kamay chaloim, what does the word chaloim mean? Shem chulalin v'yardin, that it's hollow and it goes all the way down, ad atahaim, all the way to the abyss. And Maisi de Umma means zu Maisa Yidei Umnusa Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the handiwork of the Eibishter himself when he created the world. Tana de Rabbi Shmuel. This is the first word in the Torah. Bereishis, al tikre bereishis, elabarashis. The Eibishter created these shittin that go all the way down under the Mizbeach. Tanya and Abraisa we learned. Rabbi Yosi said, shittin mechulalim v'yardin ad tahim. These shittin are completely hollowed down to the tahim. Shenema, he brought another pasuk for this, where it says, Ashira nali didi, I will sing for my beloved, Shiras daidi lekarmai, the song of my beloved for his vineyard. And this again is all a mashal. This vineyard here is all a mashal for the Beis HaMikdash. Kerem hayeli didi bekeren shaman. My beloved had a vineyard in a corner that's a very fat, a very fruitful, a very good place. Fertile place. Vayaskeyu, and he strengthened it. Vayisakleyu, and he took out all the things that, like rocks and other things that are not good for it. Vayite'eyu soirek, and he planted it to be a very good vineyard, as she says, that it has deep roots. Vayiven migdal b'seichai, and he built a migdal, a tower in it. V'gam yekev chotzav boy, and he also dug a vat for the grapes, for the wine in it. So what's this pasuk all a mashal for? It's for the Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara Text is part of the pasuk. Vayite'eyu soirek ze Beis HaMikdash. Planting the soirek, this good vineyard, refers to the Beis HaMikdash. Vayiven migdal b'seichai, he built a tower in it, ze mizbeach, that refers to the mizbeach. And v'gam yekev chotzav boy, the yekev, which is the vat, there where the wine goes on the ground, elu hashitten. This refers to the shitten that went on the mizbeach to the tahim. Tanya, but now the Gemara brings another braisa that there's another opinion here, that it actually did not go, the wine did not go all the way on the ground. Amar Rabbi Elazar bat Tzadok, lul cotton hoya, there was a small opening that bein kevesh lemizbeach, between the ramp and the mizbeach. As Rashi here brings, the halacha was that the mizbeach and the ramp were not supposed to touch each other. Just like when it comes to Zrikas Adam, you're supposed to spray the blood on the Mizbeach, not place it, but spray it. Same thing with the parts that they put on the Mizbeach to burn. You were supposed to throw it from the Kevesh onto the Mizbeach. So therefore the Mizbeach and the Kevesh, there was a little separation between them. And over there, in that separation, there was an opening in the Ma'ariv, on the western side of the Kevesh, that they were able to go in over there. And Va'achas l'shivim shana, once in 70 years, Pirchei Kohona Yerden L'Sham, the young Kaina would go down there. Umelakten Misham, Yayin Kodesh, they would gather from there congealed wine, Shadaimele Gule Devela, that it was there for so many years and it became congealed and it was like the pressed figs, or like the figs that are, like these cakes of figs that are pressed with each other. That's what the wine was like over there. Ubaim V'Sayfer Kedusha, they would take out the wine and they would burn it in a place of holiness. In other words, they would burn it in the Azara. It was dafka to be burnt there, not outside. What's the why? Why dafka in the Azara? Shenema, because the pasuk says, "B'kodesh haseich nesach sheichar lashem," that in the kodesh you should pour this wine for the Eibishter. So we learn from here, kishem shenisuchay b'kedusha, just like when you pour it, it's in the kedusha on the mizbeach. Kach sreifasei b'kedusha. When you burn it, it should also be done in a holy place in the Azara. So the Gemara asks, "My mashma." How do you see in this pasuk that the kedusha is not only when you pour it, but it's also when you burn it? In the pasuk it just says, "B'kodesh haseich nesach sheichar." It talks about pouring. It doesn't talk about burning. Amar Avine asye kodesh kodesh. It's because we learn out the pasuk that it says here the term kodesh, and it says in another place kodesh. Ksiv acha b'kodesh haseich nesach, uksiv hasam v'sarafta esanoisar be'eish lo yeyachol ki kodeshu. That by Naisa, when you have to burn it, so where do you burn it? In the Azara. It's Kodesh, and that's where you have to burn it. So just like over there, the mitzvah is to burn it dafka in a place of Kodesh, the same thing over here, you have to burn it dafka in the Azara, in a place where it's Kodesh. So the Gemara, Keman Ozla, Hadetnan, according to who does this Mishnah here go? Where it says that Nisachim, when it comes to the wine that you pour in the Mizbeach, Batchila, in the beginning, in other words, before it was poured, Mayelin Behen. There's me'ila. If you drink it or you use it for anything, there's the halach of me'ila that you misused something that belongs to hektish. Yardu l'shittin. Once it was poured and it went down into the pipe that goes under the mizbeach, and if you got it from there, ein ma'ilim behem. There's no meila over here after it was poured already. So now, how do you get it after you pour it down? So Leime Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadiki. It only goes according to Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadik that says that the hole under the Mizbeach did not go all the way down to the Tahaim. If it would just go straight down. There's no way a person can get it. The Rabbanan Nachzele Tahaim. According to the Rabbanan, it goes all the way down to the Tahaim. So the Gemara says no. That's not it could be even according to the Rabbanan. Afil Taim Rabbanan b'de iklet. A Kayan someone went, you were pouring the wine, and someone went there under, and he gathered the wine. I guess it was exposed. You can go there under the Mizbeach and stick your hand in and get the wine before it goes all the way down into the Tahaim. That's one way, one version of how this Mishnah was discussed regarding this Machlokes here. Ve'kedamri, others say that the discussion went as follows. Lei merabbanon, should we say that Mishnah goes dafka according to the Rabbanon, veloy Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadik, and not Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadik? Why? The Rabbi Elazar, if it would go according to Rabbi Elazar, akati b'kedushasayu kaimi. What is Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadik saying? Even after you pour it in the Mizbeach, and it goes under the Mizbeach, when you take it out after 70 years, it still has kedusha. And therefore, if you're going to burn it, you have to still burn it in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Azara. So why are we saying that the Me'ilah is only before you pour it, and not after you pour it? According to Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadik, it has Kedusha even after you pour it. So there still should be Me'ilah. According to the Rabbana, once you pour it, it's going down to the Tahaim, it has no Kedusha anymore. You don't have to burn it in the Azara, it goes all the way down to the Tahaim, so it has no Kedusha. So if someone goes and collects it before it goes all the way down, you understand why you're not Ma'il anymore. But Al-Khayr, according to Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadik, there should still be Me'ilah. So the Gemara says, no. This that it says here that there's no me'ilah after you poured it could be according to Rabbi Elazar, because here's the rule regarding me'ilah. There's nothing where you did it, you used it for the mitzvah, whether it's a carbon and the carbon was brought, in this case the wine, and it was poured. Once the mitzvah was done with it, the halach of me'ilah, there is no me'ilah anymore. So therefore, even if it still has kedusha regarding the place where you have to burn it, but there is no me'ilah anymore. Reish Lakish, another halacha b'chlal regarding pouring the wine, the nisach hayayin on the mizbeach. Bezman shemenaschen yayin al gabi mizbeach. When you pour the wine on the mizbeach, poikekin es hashitin. They would plug up the holes of where it would go down. First they would plug it up, and the wine would gather on top of the mizbeach, and only after it gathered on top of the mizbeach, then they would unplug it. L'kayim hashanema, this fulfills what it says in the pasuk. Ba'kodesh haseich nesech sheichel Hashem. So the Gemara explains, my mashma, how do you see in this pasuk that you want the wine to gather on top of the mizbeach, and only after it gathers it should all go down together? Rav Papa, because sheicher, when it says here sheicher, loshen shtia, sheicher means like when you drink it, loshen svia, you get satiated by it, and loshen shichrus, intoxicated. And that's dafka when it all goes down together at once, not just drop at a time. That's why it should gather all together, and then the Mizbeach drinks it all together at once. Amarave, so the Gemara here now says, based on this, Rav Papa, went down the line. Rav Papa, when you get to drinking wine, if you want to know how to drink wine, here's the Gemara. Shma mina, from here we learn. Ki sava inish chamre, when a person gets satiated from the wine that he drinks, where's the geschmack of the wine? Migraine sava. It's in your throat. It's the wine that you drink. If you drink a lot of wine in your throat, if you're drinking a small little bit at a time, the satisfaction of the wine is not when it goes down in your stomach. It's in the throat when you have a lot of wine that you drink at once in your throat. So these Talmidei Chachamim, they don't have a lot of wine. Ligme gimue. So they should drink whatever wine they have, drink it all at once, so you'll have that geschmack of the wine in your throat when you drink it all together. Rave, so now the Gemara says, applies this to the mitzvah of Kiddush. Akasad, or any mitzvah when you have a kais of wine. Akasad brachasa, when he used a kais of wine for a bracha. So agma gemui, he would drink it all down at once, for the chvivus of the mitzvah, as Rashi here says, to show how much he enjoys the mitzvah of making the kiddush on the wine, so he would drink it in this way, to the whole wine at once in his throat. Going back to the pasuk that was quoted before regarding the Beis HaMikdash, here's the beginning of the pasuk. Before the pasuk, it's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. So the pasuk was Chamuki Yerechech K'moi Chaloim, referring to the thighs, in other words, the shitin that went under the mizbeach. So the beginning of the pasuk is here. Darash Rav, Mai Dechsev, Mai Yofu, Pa Mayech Bana Olim. how beautiful are your feet in the sandals, or your steps that you take in your sandals. And then it says Bas Nediv, the daughter of the Nediv. What does this mean? Mayafu Pameyan Shal Yisrael, how beautiful are the footsteps of Yidden, B'shah Sha'ilin L'regel, when they go up to Aliyah L'regel, to the Beis HaMikdash. What does Bas Nediv mean? Bitay Shel Avram Avinu. Yidden are the daughter of Nediv, which refers to Avram Avinu. Shenikra Nodiv. Avram Avinu was called a Nodiv. Shenemar, it says in the Pasuk, Nedivei Amo Nesafu. Am Elekei Avram. So the Pasuk here, when it says this expression of Nedivei Amim, it only says Elekei Avram. Elekei Avram, V'loy Elekei Yitzchak, V'lekei Yaakov. Why doesn't it mention Elekei Yitzchak and Elekei Yaakov? Ela Elekei Avram, Sho Yitchil Elekeidim. Avram Avinu was the first of the Avis, and he was the first that was Megayer, many to become Gedim, so therefore he's called the Nodiv. Tana de Rav Anan, we learned in the Braisa, Rav Anan said, Mai Dechsiv, going back to that pasuk before, now the Gemara is going to teach it differently. Before we teach it going on the Shittin, that went under the Mizbeach, now the Gemara teaches this on Teira. Chamuki Yereichech, that the thighs are hidden, Lama Nimshulu, Lama that is, Lama Nimshulu Divrei Teira Ki Yerech. Why is Teira compared to a thigh? Loi Malachat to tell you as follows, Ma Yerech B'Seiser, just like a thigh is covered, Af divrei Teira b'seiser. So too, when it comes to a person that's learning Teira, he shouldn't go in a place where everybody sees him, that he could show off with his learning of Teira. Learn Teira in a quiet place, in a hidden place, in a way that's tznius to yourself, not to show off with your Teira. V'haina damer Rabbi Lazar, mai dechsiv, higid l'cha adam ma toiv. A person tells you what's good, what does the Eibusha want from you? And then it says, to go in a discreet way, quietly with the Eibusha. This is judgment, to make a proper justice. And then it says, that refers to bringing it, supporting, if you need, for a levaya, or to make sure that a mace gets buried, and achnasas kala, to make sure that a kala is able to go in for a chuppah. So that's what atznei alechas refers to. In other words, all of that, aitzas amaze, and achnasas kala should be done in the quietest way possible. Rashi here says, two pshotim, what this means, that the aitzas amaze and achnasas kala should be done by atznei alechas. Either Rashi says, "Benegeh to the Suda." Yeah, this is over here, "Benegeh to Achasana." Either means that the Suda should be b'mid noah v'loy linik kalas reish batzmai. The Suda of Achasana should be measured properly, not ostentatious, out of control in a way that it's not with atznei alechas. Another thing Rashi says, "Benegeh to supporting." Benegeh to a person that's supporting a kala that has to get married. So it should be done also in a way, but tznius, that not everybody has to know who it is, who's the one that's supporting. So the Gemara says, "V'haloi dvarim kal v'chayim." So now we have a kal v'chayim. Ma dvarim shedarkan lasas b'ferhesya. If lasaysam b'ferhesya, if we're talking about the levaya, tzos ameis and achnasas kala, which are things that are done openly and publicly. Amra teirat tznei aleches. The Torah is saying that those things should also be done and as quiet as possible. Dvarim shedarkan lasaysam b'tzina. Other things that are usually done quietly. So Rashi says, tzedakah b'chlal. Tzedakah b'chlal is something that should be done quietly. No one has to know who's giving and to who is giving and so on. So halachas kama v'kama, most definitely is something that has to be done quietly. So Rashi says, so from here we learn out that the same thing has also been get to learning Torah, which we started off with chamuki yerechech, regarding learning Torah, that a person doesn't have to go in a place where everyone has to see what he learns and so on, but you learn Torah quietly. Amar Rabbi Lazar said, Gadol ha'osid tzedakah yosem mikol ha'karbonos. Person that does tzedakah is greater than all karbonos. Shenemar asayis tzedakah umishpat. Someone that does tzedakah and mishpat, nifchal Hashem mizebach. This is more chosen and beloved by the Eibishter than the karbonos that you bring on the mizbeach. Amar Rabbi Lazar, gedoyla gemilas chasadim yosem min tzedakah. Gemilas chasadim, if you're helping someone with a gemilas chesed, is even greater. So Gemilas Chesed over here refers to you're giving someone something that he needs. You give him actual food, or you help him with something with a Gemilas Chesed, begufay. So that's even greater than giving him money for tzedakah. Shenema zaru lachem l'tzedakah. Regarding tzedakah, the pasuk compares it to planting, and the kitzru lefi chesed, and reaping is through chesed. So what do you see from this? Im Adam Zeireya, when a person plants, Safek Eichel, Safek Ein Eichel, you don't know if you're going to have what to eat or not. You don't know what it's going to grow. Adam Kaitzer, when you're reaping, Vaday Eichel. So now you know what grew, you know what you have. So by Chesed, it has this milah that when you give someone something that's prepared, you give him a piece of bread, you give him a garment to wear, and so on. He has it prepared for himself to use. So therefore, the same thing by the person, you know for sure that you're reaping from this. Amar Rabbi Lazar, Ein tzedakah mishtalemes ela lefi chesed sheba. The tzedakah that the Eibusha gives you, the schar for the tzedakah, is according to the amount of chesed that the person that received it, the chesed that he got from this, how he was able to use it. Shenemar zaru lachem tzedakah. You plant tzedakah, you give money for tzedakah. V'kitzru, but what you reap, the schar that you get for this is lefi chesed, is lefi what he was able to use this money for tzedakah. Ton Rabbanan, we learned in Abraise, b'shloisha dvarim. There are three things that gedayla gemilas chasadim yesem min tzedakah. That the gemilas chesed is greater than tzedakah. Tzedakah b'mamayne. So first of all, tzedakah is only using your money. Gemilas chasadim, but on the other hand, gemilas chasadim is bein begufay. It's with your body, helping someone with your body, and bein b'mamayne, also with money. It's either way. Tzedakah is la'aniyim. Tzedakah is for someone that's poor. Gemilas chasadim is bein la'aniyim and bein la'ashirim. Gemilas chasadim is whether someone is poor, whether someone is rich. He needs something right now that you can help him with. It could be even someone that's rich. Tzedakah l'chayim, giving money for tzedakah is for someone that's alive. And gemilas chasadim is bein l'chayim, bein l'meisen. Gemilas chasadim is done whether with people that are alive, whether people that are not. So that's the mile of gemilas chasadim. There's a ha'ara from the Rebbe in a letter where the Rebbe writes that the Gemara here is giving the mile of gemilas chasadim. But the emphasis, there's also a tremendous mile that tzedakah has that gemilas chasadim does not have. It's the famous thing that the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, Perek Lamed Zayin, that when a person gives tzedakah, because this is he worked for this and he earned this money, so when you give money for tzedakah, all the chayes that the person invested in earning this money goes to tzedakah when he gives the tzedakah. When you help someone, right now, a person needs you to help him schlep something. He needs a piece of bread. You can't necessarily say that all the money that you earned, you're putting into that chesed that you're doing, that you're giving. So in that sense, there's a very big mile to tzedakah. And so the Rebbe says, Be'emes, tzedakah is higher than gemilas chesed. Elamai, the Gemara is saying, nevertheless, there are these three miles that gemilas chesed has over tzedakah. Someone that does tzedakah and justice, it's like he filled the entire world with chesed. Fills the entire world with chesed. So now you might think, anybody that thinks that he can come and jump and he'll have an opportunity to do chesed, that this is something that's available for anybody to do tzedakah and chesed, so that's not so pashat. Not everybody will have that, but the Eibusha doesn't give everybody always the opportunity to do tzedakah and mishpat. Tamad loima ma'yakar chazlecha lekim, that ma'yakar chazlecha means that this is something which is it's something very precious, and you have to pay attention to this and run after it and try to find who to give tzedakah to and how to do a gemilas chesed. It's not always so simple to find the right place to give tzedakah and chesed. Yochel af yirei shemayim chen. I would think also for Yirei Shemayim, it's not always so easy to do tzedakah and chesed. Talmud loima v'chesed Hashem me'olam ad olam al Yireyav. The ones that have Yirei Shemayim, they always are able to easily find to do tzedakah and chesed. Any person that you see has a special grace on him. B'yidua shehu Yirei Shemayim. That's a sign that he's God-fearing. Shenem chesed Hashem me'olam ve'olam al Yireyav. The chesed, the grace of the Eibusher is on the people that fear him. What's the meaning of the pasuk that says Pia pascha b'chachma v'seiras chesed al sheina? That she opens her mouth with wisdom and there's the teiras chesed on her tongue. V'chi yesh teiras shel chesed v'yesh teiras she'eina shel chesed. It's mashmer from the pasuk that the chiddush of this person is that he has a teira which is chesed. In other words, there's teira that's not chesed. What does that mean? So the answer is a teira l'shma. Person that learns teira l'shma zui teira shel chesed. That's the teira that's called teira of chesed. Shaloi l'shma zui teira she'eina shel chesed. This is a teira that's not chesed. Another pshat, Ikadamri, others said, Teira lelamda, when you learn Teira, not just for yourself, but you also teach Teira, Zui Teira shel chesed. That's a Teira of chesed because you're teaching it for others as well. Shaloi lelamda, but if you learn Teira, and whatever you learn you keep for yourself, and you're not teaching it to others, Zui Teira she'eina shel chesed. That's a Teira that's not chesed.